So it's my very good and great pleasure to welcome you all here today. This is an exciting session because it's the culmination of 3 sessions that we've already done on this whole issue of mankind and humanity and the web of life. And today we're going to be talking practically about how we're going to do. But first of all, as we know, we're busy recording the session. So it will be up on the Pass It On Network's YouTube channel. The 50-50 structure that you can expect today is very simple. We have Jan, who's going to introduce Peter Whitehouse, who will moderate the session. And then there will be 2 breakout sessions in the first part, and then a question and insights section afterwards. So you'll all have the opportunity of talking. We will go right through probably for an hour and 15, but if you need to leave at the top of the hour, do know then that there is a recording that you can follow up on. Towards the end, we're going to ask you to be really very generous with us. We will share a link to the feedback form, and the feedback form would be what you feel about this going forward. The classic thing is that if you're not talking, please mute yourself so we don't have interference. And having said all of that, it gives me great pleasure to call on Jan Hively to introduce Peter to you. Jan, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Peter and I and a whole lot of us here, I think, share this passion about learning that connects all living beings across generations, across species, and around our planet, Mother Earth. We've had these, this is the 4th in the series. We're going to talk about reflection and then ideally about actions that we have suggested, intergenerational actions. We were asked to invite a younger to join us, and my younger, who's 55, I'm 90, is Dean Hively, my son, who's here from the District of Columbia to help me pack up and move to where Jay Bloom is, which is in Portland, Oregon, which is what we're going to do next month. But it doesn't matter where. He is a soil and water research scientist. He teaches me every day, as does my daughter, who is an environmental engineer. Both of them are in the field, and both of them really, from my perspective, show how youngers can teach olders. We always think of ourselves as possible mentors, etc., but it goes both ways, as we know. Peter Whitehouse, who is also known as the tree doctor, Sylvanus, is a U.S. professor of cognitive science who is passionate about intergenerational learning and about climate issues. So Peter will lead us, our participants, young and old, through a process of reflection about themes that have surfaced through the 3 previous 50-50 conversations that were titled Feeling Entangled Roots, Living Rivers in the Rainforest, and Sanctuary. We have another presenter here from Sanctuary, and that was Kathy Bailey. It's one of our participants today. Unfortunately, neither of the speakers from Living Rivers and the Rainforest are able to attend, but some of you will remember what they had to say, I hope, and we can talk together about the futures of our communities and explore our ideas in both small breakout rooms and in the full group. Peter, will you take over, please?
Hello, everybody. Great to be back with you. They're just announcing the film here in the Algonquin Visitor Center, so I apologize in advance for any background noise. It's been a delight to be with some of you the whole time, and for those of you that haven't been, let me just summarize a little bit what the specific 3 events were previously. So Jan just gave you the titles. We're all about roots and sanctuary and water. In fact, we're going to consider this, if you'll forgive another forest metaphor, the harvest of the ideas that came from the first three and emerge in the breakout groups. So if you haven't been able to attend, don't worry. So the first session was myself interviewing Ethan Bonerath, who's a student in Canada, who's doing his global project on fostering intergenerational conversations. So that was a good lead off. He was accompanied for the journey with his father, Ruben, and also with Brian Bupa, who is with the Legacy Project, which is a group working on issues of 7 generations and the environment here in Canada. And I do apologize if there's background noise, but let me continue. Secondly, we had Chief Shirley Krenak with her partner, who's Dutch but lives in the Brazil, David Albert. Chief Shirley Krenak is a member of the Krenak tribe that lived in the Alta Atlantica, the second largest forest in Brazil. So it's not the Amazon, but it's a place that's been ravaged by mining. And Shirley spends her time thinking about and acting upon the damage that have been done to their river that, of course, have been part of their indigenous heritage for years. And next, we had Kathy Bailey and her daughter and partner, Deirdre and Annie Bailey. That's the sanctuary. They're in New England, where they've got an animal sanctuary, which I'd love to share more about. Perhaps it'll come up again. And because Kathy and I and others share Celtic roots, we kind of return to the indigenous theme, not only of the indigenous tribes that lived in New England and still do, but also the fact that you can be indigenous from Scotland if you think of yourself as having that Celtic heritage. So that's just a brief rundown about what we did. And of course, now it's important in this fourth session to focus about what we're going to do. And we did come up with a question to inspire you in what will be two, I think there are 7 minutes now, forgive me, I don't have the brief, unmoderated breakout sessions where we'll ask you to address this question. We'll all come back together in the middle for a brief breather, and then after they're over, we'll have a larger open session to everybody to harvest any ideas from the first 3 sessions or what emerges in the sessions, the breakouts today. Can I turn that back to Osnat or Moira to pose the question and go through those logistics as you feel necessary to do so again?
Yeah, so we're going to, after Peter introduces the question, we're going to go into 10 minutes breakout rooms. You'll be 3, and I think occasionally maybe one room is going to have a 4. Peter, by the way, are you able to join a breakout room, or do you want to stay in the big room? Anyway, but while Peter is answering,
I can join a breakout room, or if anybody's not up to you, Osnat, I'm happy to do that.
I'll use my liberty and power as a facilitator to move people around if necessary. So you'll be there for 10 minutes pondering the question that we're going to put in the chat right now. And then after 10 minutes, you come back. I'll do my best to jumble the breakout rooms and give you an opportunity to speak with different people. If you happen to have another person you met before, then it's a nice conversation continuation. And then you'll be there for another 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and process everything and integrate it. So that's what I have to say.
Speak out the question, Osnat, that you're going to be typing into the chat box.
So I have the question in the chat, and I'm just looking here to make sure that we have everybody in good place in the breakout room.
So the question is, what intergenerational actions could have the greatest positive impact on the climate and overall well-being of our communities? Same question for both 10-minute sessions.
That's right. And I will be able to just one more move here. 8, I think. Let's see. Eluding. Okay, 9. 9.
Oh, there's
and Ruben, I'll put Ruben somewhere soon. So I'm sending you all to 10-minute session. There'll be a time counter on the upper right-hand corner, and you'll be able to read the question in the chat because it will follow you. So see you soon.
Happy chatting.
Yeah. And let's see. I'm going to send Ruben. Hi. We're going to send you into a breakout room. I'm going to, this is what we are pondering, and you haven't missed anything. You are going to, let's see, you're going to be going to room number 6 and enjoy it for 10 minutes. See you soon. Okay, room number 6. Yes, you should be going there. All right.
Okay.
All right, so they'll be back in 9 minutes.
Right. We've got 34 people. It's better than I thought. Huh?
I'm shocked.
You're shocked.
Yeah. I'm shocked that we have that many people.
No, it's an indicator of the interest for the subject, huh? Whether we like it or not.
It's a boring summer.
Maybe. Oh my goodness.
I'm just taking a screenshot of the rooms. Okay. Oh, okay, so I'll be sending you back the Panther's copy
Okay.
of the invitation. It doesn't, for me, it still doesn't flow.
Okay.
So I'll just remove some rough edges, but
Okay. It's called collaboration.
that's right. Yeah, it's so easy to edit somebody else's copy, you know.
Oh, it's always easiest to do that, but it's easy. But you know, you started it, and yeah. But I don't know if you like the photograph of her as a start.
It's okay. I mean, it makes no difference. We just need to. Is this in the public domain, or do you need to put a?
It comes.
I think that's we should attach as a PDF the article.
Yes,
because it was written, taken. The interview was in 1993, so 2 years before she died. So it's already hard, you know, citing a lot of the accomplishments and.
No, and it was a very interesting article. I really enjoyed reading up, you know, everything you sent through. Thank you, Peter Whitehouse.
Peter? My audio was in one room and my video was in the other, so I just left one.
So, so where are you?
And now we can't.
Anyway, yeah, he's in 2 places. I can't quite tell which one is his video and his audio. So
he's achieved it. He's achieved.
Yeah, and here's Ruben again. Now, what happened to Ruben? Yes. Ruben, did we lose you?
Oh,
no, it's not Ruben. It's.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Hello.
Super. Thank you.
Hey, you have 5 minutes. Can we send you into one of the breakout rooms? And we are pondering this question that you see in the chat, and maybe you can help some people think about it. I'll send you to room number 2. How's that? Just
Great, thank you.
What generational actions could have the greatest positive impact on the climate and overall well-being of our communities? Gosh, I wonder how poor Peter got himself.
He's using one device for video and one device for audio. That's one of the ways to use Zoom.
Okay.
Because, yeah, when things become a little dicey.
Okay.
Okay. Oops, and who? We have Peter again? Mm-mm. So what happened, Peter?
It's connecting to audio.
Yeah, it's...
Oh, gosh.
I'm reconnecting. I got disconnected as I predict I would on one device.
So, you know, maybe you can stay with us and try to join the next round. Yeah. I'm not going to send you back to any place unless you want to. You want to? No, there are 3 people there. It's okay. Do you want to go back to room number 3? I don't know which room you were in. I can't tell which one of the devices you are in.
Oh, dear.
It's okay. Anyway, they're coming back in 2.5 minutes.
Right.
So his sound is in the Tree Doctor and his video is in the Peter Whitehouse. So when I reshuffle, I'll only assign the Tree Doctor to a room and leave the, or maybe put both of them in the same room and then they'll live happily ever after. You're on mute.
This is awkward.
Peter, can you hear us?
Doesn't look like it, eh?
Oh,
This is so weird. All the participants have disappeared, and we've now got 4 participants. Is that because they're in breakout rooms?
Yep.
Okay.
I just sent them a note that they have 1 more minute.
Okay. Peter, are you hearing us? Oh dear.
Ajnat, I'm doing fine in another room, so it's confusing to me, but that's true.
I'll tell you what, Peter, for the next round, I will leave you in this room and not send you into a breakout room unless you really want to. And if you do, I'll send both of you into the same room.
It's very puzzling.
Okay, people are coming back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back, everybody.
Oops.
So I've learned that on 2 devices, your audio and your video can be split. So I hope you can hear me. And it's just a brief welcome back. I participated in one by audio, so thank you, team. We're not going to do report backs now. We're just going to go right into another breakout session. Same 10 minutes, different people, and then we'll have a larger harvesting after. The other thing I would add at this point is to say, let's think a little bit about the future. Brian Bupa works on a project called the Legacy Project. The Pass It On Network is all about legacy. So as you look into the future, as you become an ancestor, or imagine yourself as an ancestor, which hopefully will all be sometime, what do you see the actions that you took when you were living before you became an ancestor that made the biggest difference? So let's think long term and go back into our breakout groups. And Osmat, leave me in the main room this time, please, because it's too confusing to be in 2 places at one time.
So it was a little difficult to do it. Either you're going to be in your own room, so take both of you and go back to the main room. Everybody else, you're cool. So
could we have the question again, please?
Yes, I just put it in the chat. I'll put it
In the
again.
chat room.
It will
Okay.
just follow you. So see you again. Hopefully you have different partners. If not, just continue the conversation with the spirit that Peter just presented, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes.
Peter's disappeared now.
No, he's in room number 9. Both of him are in room number 9, and he can hopefully take himself back to joining there.
Very interesting, huh? Yeah.
I think you could probably pause the recording, but not forget to reactivate it.
Yeah.
Just make it smaller.
We're all bursting with ideas. What do we do with them now?
Yeah, what a good idea. If you have any questions or any comments that you may or may not be able to say out loud, just throw them in the chat. We are going to save the chat and send it as a record to all of you. So the chat is a good place to have your thoughts and your questions. So please do not hesitate to use it. If I'm looking at what we have in mind here, we were going to speak about right now, to open the microphone to people who have some insights or questions or ideas that we'd like to share with everybody.
Well,
And can you hear me?
Here's Peter. Peter is back.
Thank you. I was echoing now. So is it just one of me?
Yes.
One and only
Finally.
Peter.
Okay, so welcome back, everybody. I had the opportunity to hear a very interesting international conversation about water. And this is the time now for the harvesting from whatever anybody wishes to say based on participation in earlier groups or today. And because I'm now only on audio, Moira or Jan, can I ask one of you to help field questions or comments, one or the other?
fine. I'm going to start by asking Ian Goldman to bring up the themes that came through in our conversation with Ethan. And then I'm going to ask others of you to think about who would like to speak and to signify that either in the chat box or by clicking on, but how do they put a hand on the screen, Osnet?
Well, there is a button called reaction.
Yes.
At the bottom, and in reaction you say raise hand, so we can see that.
Okay, good. So please raise your hand if you want to speak. And in the meantime, Ian, would you mind telling us what we said?
Very well. A powerful message that we seemed to come up with, the three of us, was that collaboration is a very important element of a successful intergenerational activity. And what that means is that the activity has to be of mutual benefit to all the levels of generation involved. They could be boomers, like many of the people I perceive to be on this call. And I think our main motivation is to leave a footprint, to do good for the future. They could be the next generation who are perhaps in their 40s and 50s, who are still concerned with the everyday matters of raising children who may be struggling to find employment in these difficult times. So their motivation is quite different from ours. Both sets of motives have to be recognized, and the activities need to be planned so that both sets of motives are fulfilled to some degree. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Brenda Hunter. Will you talk about how you structured your family reunion in relationship to what Ian just said, thinking about responding to the needs of all of the generations? Brenda?
Yes, Jan, I'd be happy to do that. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're from North
Can you hear
Carolina,
me?
by the way, to tell people.
Yes, and if you can't hear me well, I can turn on my video.
We can hear you well.
I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. So we had our annual, biannual family reunion, and we had about 125 people, and we have about 5 generations, the oldest being the largest group. So we planned activities that would help it create conversations and activities among the generations. One of the things I mentioned was the Get Acquainted bingo, where we actually gave cash money if you asked these questions and got signatures on the blocks. The young people were interested in the dollar line. There were teenagers who were not interested in bingo, but they were interested in the money. And so they were very, very motivated to go around and inquire on the older people. And some of you may not have been exposed to things like picking blackberries, but that was one of the questions we asked. Who has picked blackberries in their youth? And so there were some over 70 people who had picked blackberries, or who had gone to church with granddaddy. And there were some younger people who had gone to church with my father. So we did that, and I had about 49 different items on the list, and it was very successful. Another thing that we did was workshops, educational workshops, and one was on the most important one on health and wellness. So we asked the youngest healthcare providers in our family, a nurse and a medical assistant, to work with the 2 retired nurses in the family to do a short presentation. So they were able to, we were able to get some old background information. We were able to talk about the numbers. One member of the family had had a stroke, so there was a lot of interest in what was that about. And so we actually had, everyone was interested, because that person who had the stroke was somebody's mother and grandmother and sister at that reunion. So it was a very important thing. I think that we did a lot. We had a legacy tour of a community where our forefathers came from, and letting the younger ones know, exactly what they did, what was owned and developed and carried through. So those were some of the things we did to just actually facilitate conversation and make sure, number one, make sure we got acquainted across the generations, but number 2, to share information. I think for my group, knowledge transfer is just the most critical involvement we can have right now. So
I just want to say I love the idea, because it could be used from neighbors who live on the same street, or it could be people who are in the same housing development, or, it could be used in so many different ways. Can we think about raising hands here? Anyone would like to talk?
I would like to share some ideas.
Thank you, Thomas.
Okay, thank you. I was talking to the other 2 groups earlier, that senior people, old men like me nowadays, you find what happened, that the young people are generally very good with computer, and they do not like to teach senior or old people because we are slow. So this makes me lost respect for my own knowledge and experience, and this will cause a disconnection. So how do we, what can we do to as what say, to have a reconnection so that we can link up with them, so that they can respect us for our knowledge. Because I think we have gone through many stages. We have sort of experience living. We know how to overcome it. But how do you make young people believe us? That's my problem. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. That's very, very helpful, Thomas. Anyone else? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah. So we had, in the two groups that I was in, we had some, we sort of came to similar conclusions, I felt. And that was that our generation wanted to pass on information. And then the other group, we were differentiating between knowledge and wisdom, and how that we need to pass on the wisdom, but we also need to let people know that we weren't stupid, and that we did good things, although we may have made some mistakes. There's a lot of good things that our generation did. And I gave the example of my mother-in-law having people coming into her, and she feels like she's mentoring them. My mother-in-law is almost 96. The people coming in to help her are younger than that. And one of them in particular is talking to her about, the problem she's having in getting her child to help with doing the washing up. So mother was able to explain that. So it came across, I think, that we need informal meetings. And I think, family get-togethers are certainly informal. So that is a way of doing it. And like Jan, you were saying, street gatherings, or, building gatherings or something like that, where there's just this informal exchange over food, over helping house cleaning or something like that. But there needs to be this informal sharing, informal gathering, and that where we nurture the wisdom of our culture, we pass the wisdom on. Knowledge is always changing. And so we could, someone else brought up the idea of learning knowledge together, so that the young people can see how the older people, incorporate this. And, but yet it's the wisdom that we need to pass on. How do you cook things? How do we make things? How did my grandmother make things? Like your grandmother, I can't imagine that I had a grandmother, for example. It's too many generations ago. But I remember my grandmother, and I can talk to them about what she did. And that information is important. So that's what our groups got talking about. Am I right, Sylvia? Was that?
Thank you very much, Michelle. I wanted to comment about Famada's comments. Famada, are you there?
Yes, I am.
She talked about the importance of, to connect here as far as nature is concerned. You talked about the plants, the traditional medicine, learning from indigenous people. Could you just comment a little bit about that? Because I think that we can do so much more in relationship to thinking about the impacts that we've had, negative impacts in relationship to climate aging, but how we can benefit from all aspects of the nature that's all around us, and both give to it and also take from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jan. I was sharing with the group that, within the context of South Africa, where I am from, I grew up in a home where we possibly didn't have as much access to public health care like today's generations have. And my grandmother and great-grandmother would use remedies from nature in terms of any ailments that we had. And that kind of knowledge is not captured anywhere, because it was knowledge that was shared and passed through the generations. And I was saying to Jan, some of the things that I think we need to be thinking about is how we create spaces for intergenerational conversation. So this knowledge is captured somewhere and shared, and we can explore further in terms of how we learn from each other. And I think there's huge benefit to that. Certainly, you know, I gave the example for in my situation when I had my child, I went looking for the elders in the family to tell me about all the traditional stuff that I'm supposed to do in terms of my body healing and all the things I must do so that my baby is fine. And, you know, they understood the environment and they understood the balance between us as humans and the environment in which we live in. And this idea, Jan, as you rightly say, this idea of reciprocity, we take from the environment, but we also give back and we show respect. And I think that's so important. We must create conversation spaces for those kinds of conversations as well. Thanks, Jan.
Thank you. Ethan, back to you, I think, because you're already involved with the Legacy Project. You've made a comment about connecting all aspects of life. Could you kind of review what you have said about that, about what it takes as far as working together is concerned?
I feel intergenerational connection and working together between all generations should really occur in all aspects of life, not just the few interactions people may have at home or certain spots like that, but even at school, like what Dr. Whitehouse is doing with his intergenerational school, or in the community, like what the Legacy Project is doing. I feel all aspects of life would benefit from having intergenerational connection, and this intergenerational connection really gives benefit through the shared experiences. Each generation and each person has their own lived experience and knowledge, and through the connection and sharing of that knowledge, we can really benefit in all aspects of life.
Would you mind putting into the chat box the website for the Legacy Project? People can learn more about that if they wish to.
Of course.
Good, thank you so much.
And I see Peter has his hand up. And why not, Peter?
I was trying to raise my branch. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So just to harvest some of these ideas, and great that you could be with us, Ethan. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of days. Wisdom came into this space, and I think that's very important because it's not just knowledge, not just data. It's based, as Ethan said, on life experiences. And you do have the opportunity when you're older to have more of those. Doesn't necessarily mean you're wiser than a younger person. But this does come back for me to our relationship to nature and the 7 generations word I used a minute ago. This idea that it is our relationships to nature that we have forgotten about. It's not just the wisdom of people, it's the wisdom of trees, literally. And other people in my other group talked about the fact that younger people don't know what World War II was like. And if you look at Japan, if you look at Germany, the generations before them have done work, but they've lived in a particular cultural water that limited their perspective on climate crisis. We should have seen it. Our knowledge started in the 1800s, but we have not yet gotten the wisdom together to address that. So I think we have to have a certain sympathy, a certain humility for any living creature that exists in a different environment, in a different culture. And we really need our criticism to be constructive and collaborative, as Ian said. Collaboration and connections are absolutely key. So those are just a few reflections from the tree doctor based on what I've been hearing. Thank you.
Yes, I see that Brenda has her hand up. Brenda?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find the raised hand on the reactions on my thing here. I was telling my group that I was talking to my neighbor in the last day or two, and her son, who's a young engineer, got involved with the St. Paul the City of St. Paul group talking about recycling. And they had, you know, Zoom meetings. It was a multi-age thing. They got a stipend, like $100. And now that he is grouped with another person who is, part of this outcome was to do a project. And his is going to be trying to form a co-op for compostable carryout containers, because one of the problems is there aren't that many companies that have compostable carryout containers. And the reason I'm even talking about it is I could see this format working really well, because, you know, we talk about age differences, you know, millennials versus boomers versus X's and all that stuff. But I also think that when you have a common project, it pulls people in, and you leave some of that stuff behind. And like I said, I just heard about it in the last day or two, so I haven't had a chance to ask him more about it, because I'm really interested in recycling. I'm a fiber person, so I'm interested in mending clothes and recycling fabric, and, you know, not having stuff just go in the landfill. But I mean, that's just one aspect of our culture that needs to be attended to. And that kind of structure maybe could help, no matter which arm you're sending out from, because it all comes back to, you know, we consume too much, we have too many cars, we have big cars, we have, you know, the people that, I mean, the urban area that I live in is becoming gentrified. So the people that need mass transit, they're being pushed out. I mean, these issues are huge. So
yes, they are, and the common purposes sets apart. Common purpose with a common project is essential. Thank you so much, Brenda. It's a good suggestion. I'm going to ask my son Dean to just comment on what you've done in DC with community gardens and what role you feel that played for both community and for also learning about the earth.
Oh, that's an excellent question. And I hadn't thought about it as an intergenerational activity, but it certainly is. Here in Washington, there are many community gardens, a couple of which I've been involved with. And certainly it helps to reconnect people with the food system. I'm slightly skeptical about community gardens in urban settings really producing mass amounts of food, but it's a great place for people to interact with the soil and interact with plants and interact with each other. And I certainly learned a lot about traditional DC Black culture through my interaction with older folks who were coming to grow particular crops that they liked. There were a lot of children around also. So I agree, just like a good way to meet people is with shared activities, the community gardens is a good way. You know, anything that gets multiple people in an area that's not so specific that it excludes one generation or another, I think is a great opportunity. Yeah, like that.
Did I see your hand up, Kathy Bailey?
Well, sure, I'll speak. It was up to go paddleboarding, but I'm just yelling to the girls, I'm coming. Yeah, I like what you said, Dean. And I think for me, a common conversation, which is around food, right? So as a director of senior centers for a long time, it was always when you plan an event, how do you want to get people there? You get them there with food. Healthy conversation about food for all generations and what that means. How is it grown? What do we need to grow healthy food? What foods do we need for a healthy body? And what do we take for granted in our existing food supply chain? You know, with all the chemicals and the big ag and stuff that's coming from our total disconnection from nature. And I do think that deep listening to the millennials is in order. No offense to my whole generation, but I think we need to be more vulnerable and open to, like what Peter said, that we came up a certain way with certain things that we took for granted. Some might call it entitlement, even as I sit here and all white Chatham, right? But I think that we could pause a little bit and say, yes, we can bring a lot of wisdom to the table with deep listening to why are the millennials and the younger generation screaming? Because if we can't hear why they're screaming, we can't figure out the bits of wisdom that we do carry to thread into their future. So I think some humble introspection about, yeah, all right, so we're old and we might know this or that, but we don't know a lot of things too. And we're open to grow, as my dear friend Jan Hively says, until our last breath. And our last breath should be purposeful about the next breaths that are coming, whether they're related to us or not. And that's building on that 7th generation. So if our little bit of wisdom comes in that we can be smart enough to know that others maybe will be living on this planet after us, and our job is to make sure it's better for them, then I think we become rock stars for the millennials and not a burden.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sylvia Whitehouse from Buenos Aires, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong,
Yes.
actually found the reaction button that shows the hand. So you need to be rewarded, and I'd love to have you comment, and then let's go right to wrap up with Peter and Moira.
Okay, thank you very much. Something that resonates with me is that Peter, before said, learning is spiritual, yeah? And we live in a small world with many different cultures where we have lots of wisdom available for us to nurture us. And something I appreciated very much about this legacy project, Brian and Ethan and Ruben and whoever is in there, is the 7th generation approach. What does it mean? I think that there we have something very valuable to go deeper and explore there, to nurture our aspirations or kindle them and move more forward. If you think how much conversations changed at Peon since the last 2 years, it is a lot. Something changed, so we are moving forward, and I'm very grateful for that. It is about changing our perspectives, and these 7 generations, it means, in short, that each thought, feeling, and action has an effect on 7 generations, including ours, but 7 generations to the future and to the past. So we have to stop thinking about the next generations. We are the present, we are the past, and we are the future also. That's something I learned a lot with those interactions, and I'm ready to participate with Ethan and Brian. I don't know with that if I can contribute in some way. So that's, and Kathy, thank you very much for what you are doing. I love you. That's it.
Wonderful. Peter, you there?
I am here. What a great conversation. I'm thinking about time. Trees help us think about time in very different ways. I'm actually looking out at a maple forest. It used to be a pine forest before humans came here to this part of the world and started cutting down the trees. But I do think we need to think of ourselves, as I said in the middle between our 2 sessions, of future ancestors. Indigenous peoples and many cultures around the world respect the past. They respect the wisdom of the past. But it's a different time, it's a different age, it's the Anthropocene, and so much is happening so quickly. Intergenerational has always been a part of human life, but it's a time as Ethan is showing in his own work, to enhance those collaborative conversations. We've got to bring that notion of intergenerativity into the spaces more and more. And I have so much enjoyed these 4 sessions. And I know that there are more conversations going on everywhere. And I suspect we'll have more with our great Pass It On team in the future. So thank you very much for participating and for allowing me to be the tree doctor.
Good. Thank you very much indeed, Peter, and thank you to everybody for all these valuable contributions. As always, now we will have the chat box, and we're going to analyze that, and we will come back to you. The session will be edited and then be published on our YouTube channel. It's been a very, very rich 4 sessions, and we look forward to going forward in this direction. And I would just like to draw your attention to the fact that we have a very exciting next section, next 50-50 session, and it's also very much on the intergenerational aspect, in the sense that we are going to be looking at what Maggie Kuhn did in a matter of just 23 years, but that was 50 years ago. And what we're wanting to explore is how relevant the actions that she took at that stage are for us today. And she founded the Grey Panthers, as you'll all know, and the Grey Panthers had a subtitle which was Age and Youth in Action. And this is a very vital aspect. So we'll be going into this, and we'll have with us on the 19th of September, Jack Kupferman, who's the president of the Grey Panthers in New York, and Francis Zenodin, who's a board member. And we're going to be looking into this aspect and finding out what we need to do in a world where the number of plus 60 adults is multiplying and growing very radically, and especially in the developing world. And this is a very vital issue, and the subjects that Maggie Kuhn put forward and on the table and got matters working are as relevant today, if not even more relevant. And we need to examine what we are doing and how we're going to be doing it in the future. So I just for a second time say the date. It's Monday, the 19th of September, and the subject will be, can a call to action from 50 years ago be relevant today? Right. Any further comments, Osnet, from your side? Jan, from your side?
Yes, I'd just like to point out that I put a link in the chat. As you know, we always are interested in your views of how you thought about the set, what you thought about the session, what would you like to hear more about, etc. So just click on that link while it's still fresh in your mind, and let us know. So.
Yes, I can just underscore that it's so important. The more we know what you're thinking, the better we can offer the information and the interactions that you want. Jan? Jan, you're muted.
On September 19th, I'll be arriving in the place where I am moving, which is Portland, Oregon. And that is because I'm going to be part of an intergenerational home. And as Ian and Ethan and I agree, being next to family and being part of a multi-generational family is a very good place to start for all of us. Thank you.
Peter, thank you so much. And thank you to one and all. And we look forward to seeing you again and again and again, because our 50-50s are monthly events, and we are very much interested in getting this international interaction, intergenerational, international reaction. Fine. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.